There are three things happening to Social Security checks right now. Not next year, not someday, right now. The first one can pull 15% out of your check before it ever reaches your bank. The second one is worse. It lets the government hold back half of your entire monthly benefit, even when the mistake was never yours. And the third one quietly cuts off food help for people in their 60s who spent years believing their age protected them. Here is what makes all three dangerous. Every one of them was built to happen silently. No phone call, no warning letter in big print. You are supposed to find out the month your check comes in short, and by then, the money is already gone. Now stay with me, because there is one more thing. For one of these three, roughly 8 out of every 10 people who get hit already qualify to stop it completely. They qualify today, and almost none of them ever file the paperwork because nobody told them. The paperwork exists. Before this video ends, I will tell you which one and the exact words to use. My name is Kevin. I read the rules, so you do not have to. If you are new here, this channel exists for one reason. We read the fine print that decides what happens to your money, so you find out before the system decides for you. Subscribe and turn on the bell, because at least one of these three is going to touch someone you love. Let me start with the first one, because most people watching this are about to skip it, and that is exactly how it catches them. The federal government can once again take money directly out of your Social Security check to pay off a defaulted student loan. Verified card. Source: U.S. Department of the Treasury. Now, I already know what some of you are thinking. Kevin, I am 70 years old. I do not have a student loan. And you may be right, but listen closely, because this one catches people two different ways. First, this was paused for years. During the pandemic, the government stopped collecting on defaulted federal student loans, long enough that people assumed the debt had gone away. It did not. It sat there the entire time, and the machine that collects it has been switched back on. Second, and this is the one that stings, it is not only people who borrowed for themselves. It is parents and grandparents who co-signed or who took out what is called a Parent Plus loan to help a child or a grandchild get through school. That loan has your name on it, and if it fell into default, the government treats it as your debt, which puts your Social Security on the table. Here's how it actually works. It runs through something called the Treasury Offset Program. When a federal student loan is in default, the Treasury can take up to 15% of your monthly benefit. Verified card. Source: U.S. Department of the Treasury, fiscal.treasury.gov. There is one guardrail. They are supposed to leave you with at least $750 a month. But think about what that means for a real household. If your check is $1,200, 15% is $180, gone, every single month, before you ever see it. On a fixed income, $180 is the light bill. It is the groceries. It is the copay at the pharmacy. Let me tell you about Eunice. Eunice is 68. She lives in Macon, Georgia. She retired from a hospital laundry after 29 years. Years ago, her grandson wanted to go to college. Nobody in the family had ever gone. So Eunice signed her name. He struggled. He left school. The loan fell behind, and life moved on. She had not thought about it in a decade. Then one month, her check came in, almost $200 short. No explanation, no phone call. She did nothing wrong that month. Nothing in her life changed. The only thing that changed is that a switch was flipped in an office in Washington. That is how quietly this happens. And this is not a handful of people. Estimates put it at around 450,000 Social Security recipients exposed to this as collections restart. Verified card. Source: Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Many of them living on that check and nothing else. So here is what you do, and hear this clearly, because this is the part almost nobody uses. Do not wait for the short check to show up. If there is any federal student debt with your name on it, including a Parent Plus loan for a child or a grandchild, you have real options. The first is financial hardship. You can apply to the Department of Education to stop the garnishment on the grounds that taking that money would leave you unable to cover your basic living expenses. The second is getting the loan out of default entirely, either through what is called loan rehabilitation, where you make a series of small agreed payments, or through consolidation. Once the loan is out of default, the garnishment stops. Your Social Security is protected again. Verified card. Source: U.S. Department of Education, studentaid.gov. The point is this: this is not a lock you cannot pick, but the door only opens if you move before or right when that check starts shrinking. Call the loan servicer, ask about hardship and rehabilitation, and do it now while the full check is still in your hands. Now I want to stop right here because Eunice is the exact reason I built the thing I'm about to tell you about. Every month that her check came up short, the relief was already there, sitting in a federal program that she qualified for the entire time. Nobody handed her a checklist. Nobody said the word hardship out loud where she could hear it. The rules that governed her own money were written in a language designed to make her stop asking. That is why I put together a plain English guide called The Quiet Rules. It is the drawer version of everything I cover here, written large, written simple, the exact forms, the exact deadlines, the exact sentences to say on the phone, so that the person at the kitchen table holding a letter they do not understand knows what to do on the first day, not a year later. The paper remembers for you. That is the entire point of paper. You can find it at kevinexplains.shop. The link is right below this video, or scan the QR code on your screen right now. It is also in the pinned comment. And there is a 7-day guarantee, always. If it does not give you something you did not have before, you send it back. If this is the first time anyone has told you that your Social Security can be touched for a grandchild's loan, do me one favor. Subscribe and turn on the bell, because this channel reads the fine print that nobody sends you in the mail. Now the second change. And if the first one made you a little nervous, this one is going to make you sit up straight, because this one does not care whether you have any debt at all. The Social Security Administration can hold back up to half of your entire monthly check to recover what they call an overpayment. Verified card. Source: Social Security Administration, ssa.gov. Let me explain what an overpayment even is, because most people misunderstand it completely. An overpayment is when Social Security decides that at some point they paid you more than they should have. Maybe your income changed, maybe a benefit was recalculated, maybe a form was processed late. And here is the part that makes people furious. Very often, it was not caused by you at all. It was their own error, their own math, their own paperwork, and yet you are the one they come to collect from. For years, this was handled gently. When they clawed back an overpayment, they took about 10% of your monthly check while you paid it down. 10% stings, but you can live around it. That is over. The agency moved to a far more aggressive rate. They first announced they would take 100%, your entire check, until the debt was cleared. After a public outcry, they settled on 50%, half. Verified card. Source: Social Security Administration, ssa.gov. Sit with that for a second. Half of your Social Security check held back, potentially for months, to pay for a mistake you may not have made. For someone living on that check, half is not an inconvenience. Half is a crisis. Let me tell you about Merle. Merle is 71. He lives outside Sioux Falls, South Dakota. 33 years, driving a fuel truck. One afternoon, he brought in the mail, and there was a plain envelope from Social Security. Inside was a notice saying he had been overpaid 3 years earlier and that they intended to hold back half of his check. He read it 3 times. He never got a raise. He never hid income. If anyone made a mistake, it was them. And the letter was not asking. It was telling. That feeling That mix of confusion and fear is what close to 2 million families have been sitting with. Verified card. Source: Social Security Administration. The agency's own accounting put the total at roughly $23 billion in overpayments. That is a lot of letters going out, and a lot of checks about to get cut in half. Now here's the part I need you to hear, because most people who get that envelope assume there is nothing they can do. That assumption is the most expensive mistake in this entire video. You are not helpless in front of an overpayment notice. There are 3 specific moves, and they work. Move 1. The moment that notice arrives, understand that there is a window, generally around 90 days, before they actually start withholding. Do not ignore that window. That window is your protection. Move 2. If you cannot afford to lose that much of your check, you can ask them to take less. There is a form for exactly this. It is the request for a change in your overpayment recovery rate. You tell them what you can actually afford, 10% instead of 50%. And you can bring that check back up close to whole while you sort it out. Move 3, and this is the big one. If you believe the overpayment was not your fault, or you do not believe you were overpaid at all, you can appeal it, and you can request a waiver. When you file that appeal in time, it can pause the collection while they review your case, and the waiver says plainly, "This was not my fault, and I cannot afford to pay it back. Please forgive it." Verified card. Source: Social Security Administration, SSA.gov. People win these, but only the people who file them. So if one of those notices ever lands in your mailbox, do not panic and do not throw it away. It is not a final verdict. It is the start of a conversation. And you have far more power in that conversation than the letter wants you to feel. And here is what happened to Merle. He did not know he had 90 days. He did not know there was a form to lower the rate. He did not know the word waiver existed. He found out from a neighbor 7 weeks in. 7 weeks of a good man lying awake, doing math he did not need to do. He got most of it back, but only because a neighbor happened to know what the letter would not say. Now the third change, and this is the quietest of the 3, which is exactly why it will catch the most people. The rules for food assistance have changed in a way that pulls in a whole group of older Americans who used to be protected. I am talking about SNAP, the program most people still call food stamps. For years, the work requirement attached to it only applied to younger adults. Older adults were exempt. That protection has been pushed way up. Adults who are not otherwise exempt now have to meet a work requirement right up to age 65. Verified card. Source: One Big Beautiful Bill Act, congress.gov. In practice, people in their late 50s and early 60s who assumed they were past all this now have to document 80 hours a month of work or approved training or volunteering to keep the food help they rely on. 80 hours a month is about 20 hours a week. For someone who is 62, maybe in poor health, maybe caring for a spouse, maybe already pushed out of the workforce, that is not a small ask. Let me tell you about Ramona. Ramona is 63. She lives in Bakersfield, California. She left her job 4 years ago to care for her husband as his dementia advanced. She has not retired in any comfortable sense of that word. She works around the clock, just not for a paycheck. The food help is what stretches what little comes in. Under the old rules, her age protected her. Under the new rules, unless she files the right exemption, she is expected to go find 20 hours a week of work or lose the help. And the projections are sobering. More than 1 million older adults in that 55 to 64 range could lose food assistance because of this shift. Verified card. Source: Congressional Budget Office. But here is what matters. The exemptions did not all disappear. There are still real protections, and this is where knowing the rules saves you. You may still be exempt if you are medically unable to work. You may still be exempt if you are caring for a dependent, a young grandchild you are raising, or an incapacitated family member. If you receive disability benefits, that is generally an exemption, and once you actually reach 65, the full exemption returns. Verified card, source, U.S. Department of Agriculture, fns.usda.gov. So here's your move. If you or someone in your family is in that late 50s to mid-60s window and relies on food assistance, do not wait for a letter that cuts you off. Contact your state SNAP office. Ask them directly which exemption applies to your situation and get the documentation in on time. A doctor's note, proof that you are a caregiver, proof of your disability benefits. The exemption is only good if it is on file. And I want you to hear this next sentence more than anything else in this video. The people who lose their benefits are almost never the people who did not qualify to keep them. They are the people who qualified and never turned in the paperwork. Now here is the arithmetic that I want you to sit with. One of these three can quietly cost you around $2,000 a year. Another can take half of every check for months. And in every single case, the thing standing between you and that money was not eligibility. It was one form that nobody handed you. That is exactly what the quiet rules is. The forms, the windows, the words to say. For every one of these, written in plain English, sitting in the drawer, your family already knows about before the letter arrives, not after. You can find it at kevinexplains.shop. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment at the top. Or scan the QR code on your screen right now. 7-day guarantee, no questions asked. And if you want me to look at your specific situation, email me at kevinexplainsofficial@gmail.com. I read every one. Now let me pay off what I promised you at the start. I told you that for one of these three, roughly 8 out of 10 people who get hit already qualify to stop it completely. It is the first one, the student loan garnishment. According to the government's own consumer watchdog, roughly 82% of Social Security recipients with a defaulted federal student loan would actually qualify for hardship relief. Verified card, source, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, 82%. Read that number again. 8 out of 10 are already eligible to have that garnishment stopped. The relief is sitting right there, and almost nobody claims it for one reason. Nobody told them to ask. That is the whole story of every rule in this video. Now let me pull all three together because I want you to walk away with the picture, not just 3 scary headlines. The garnishment takes up to 15% and hardship relief stops it for 8 out of 10 people. The overpayment takes up to half, and a 90-day window, a rate form, and a waiver can pause it and even erase it. And the food rule now reaches to 65, but the exemptions still stand if you file them in time. 3 changes, 3 doors that are already unlocked. Now your checklist, 5 things this week. 1. If there is any federal student loan with your name on it, including one you co-signed, call the servicer and ask about hardship and rehabilitation. 2. If an overpayment notice has ever arrived, find the date on it. You may still be inside the 90-day window. 3. If you cannot afford the withholding, request a lower recovery rate and file a waiver if the mistake was not yours. 4. If you or your spouse is between 55 and 65 and uses food assistance, call your state office this week and get your exemption on file. 5. Send this video to one person you know over 60 living on a fixed income. One of these 3 may be about to hit their check, and they have almost certainly not heard a word about it. Let me leave you with the one thing that ties all 3 together. None of these rules were written to be announced. They were written to be applied, quietly, automatically, to people who would not know there was a form standing between them and their own money. The people who get hurt are almost never the people who had no options. They are the people who did not know the options existed until the money was already gone. That is the entire game. These rules count on you not paying attention. So paying attention today is how you win. I am Kevin. Thanks for watching. Do not forget to check the quiet rules at kevinexplains.shop.